So this lecture we get to talk a little bit about the structures that we find in animals. And this will be good because this will help you kind of figure out some of the commonalities so you can look at your particular details for your animal. So does evolution lead to the perfect animal form? Well, there's physical structures and adaptations that enhance an animal's chances of survival and reproduction. The correlation of structure and function is an overarching theme of biology. This is a really important thing. And animal structures are often just kind of good enough to function, and there's not a part of the ultimate design. So, in our kind of thought about evolution is that they don't form the perfect animals, just things that fit well. Okay? Like, this guy's not going to be able to eat that part of the tree, but the giraffe is adapted to, eat leaves from the higher part of the tree. Okay, so we're going to look a little bit at everything, and it really shouldn't be too long, but we'll talk about basics of structure and function in animal tissues. We'll actually get into this a little bit further at the end of the semester when we start anatomy, our little anatomy lesson. We will look at these because you'll want to know some things about organs and organ systems as you do your project, and then we'll just briefly talk about internal and external kind of exchange and regulation. So structure and functions of animal tissues, our basic thing that we really want to focus on here is what are the structures? I'm probably writing this one wrong, but that's okay. Of an animal. Okay, close enough. The structures and also organ systems. So also put here, organ systems, because that's a good one that we want to focus on today. Okay, so first of all, anatomy, and this will be really good. Like I said, we'll cover these things again at the end of the semester, but anatomy is the study of the structure. Physiology is the study of the function. And these things always go together because that overarching theme is that structure and function always go hand in hand. That's why there's a course called Anatomy and Physiology, because you can learn both of them at the same time. Animals consist of a hierarchy of levels of organization. There's tissues, which are integrated groups of similar cells that perform a common function. So they have similar structures to do a common function. There are organs that perform a specific task and consist of two or more tissues. And then from there you get organ systems. I didn't mean to cross it out, but these are multiple organs that perform a vital body function. And they're usually really woven together in their functions anyway. So all these things go together. So this example, we have a muscle cell, and we put multiple muscle cells together, we'll get muscle tissue. You put those together in different types of muscle tissue, but also, well, not muscle tissue, but different types of tissues together, like part of circulatory stuff, and then also muscular, and you'll get the organ. So that would be the heart. The heart would be together in the bigger system of the circulatory system, and those will begin to work all together to get our overall organism, or the organism level. Okay. So tissues are an integrated group of similar cells that perform a common function, just like we talked about, and they'll combine to form organs. Animals have four main categories of tissue that we can talk about. Epithelial, which is just kind of like skin and lining tissues. Connective tissues, which help connect things, but they get to be pretty diverse, that category. We also have muscle tissues, which are the muscle ones. They're for moving and doing what you need to do. And then nervous tissues. Okay? And without getting into it too deeply, we'll just talk about each of them really quickly. But epithelial tissues, or epithelial, is sheets of closely packed cells. These cover body surfaces and line internal and external organs and cavities. Excuse me. So I like to refer to epithelials as kind of like lining tissues, because it lines your outside as far as skin is concerned, but it's also going to line the inside as well, like your organs and your trachea and your esophagus. They're all lined with epithelials. Connective tissues are the next ones, and these guys are They're grouped a little bit differently. You don't have to know too much about them, but I'll give you some examples. So there is loose connective tissues. They're kind of rope-like collagen elastic fibers. It's actually interesting. It's loose. It's kind of actually spider web-like. If you've ever, for any of you guys who've ever been a part of like hunting and either like cleaned a deer or whatever, when you pull the skin off, there's kind of that like network of like spider web kind of tissues in there. That's loose connective tissue. We're going to see it whenever we do our dissection anyway, so you'll see it. There's fibrous connective tissue, which is more densely packed in collagen fibers, and those are typically tend to be your kind of muscle to bone. Those are your tendons and help make sure they're more densely packed, but they're still kind of elastic enough to allow kind of muscle movement, but while also attaching it to the bone is pretty important. Adipose is another one, so this is just fat. That's all that is. Okay. Cartilage is also really important. It's really strong and flexible. It's kind of a skeletal material. You find it at the ends of bones. It's really flexible. It's also that kind of slippery end that allows two bones not to meet each other and then also cause friction, because that's very problematic. So cartilage is helpful for kind of making sure bones don't kind of meet. Bone is another one of the connective tissues. What bone looks like. It actually is a kind of a reservoir for calcium. So calcium is stored there, but you can also find magnesium and phosphate too. And blood's kind of weird as a connective tissue is concerned, but it is a connective tissue, and it's part of the transporting of substances throughout the body. So those are our 6 connective tissues. And you can see sort of what they look like. This is what, when people get into anatomy, they have to look at. So this is blood. Bone looks like this. It's kind of hard to see, but they have these kind of like circular kind of, I don't know, units to them. Cartilage looks kind of funny, but it's a little bit smoother, but it's got kind of some cells in that matrix. Adipose, I always think, just looks like fat, because there's all kinds of, each one of those little white parts in there is just like a fat pocket. It's amazing. This is fibrous connective tissue, so it's a little bit more dense, and you can see it's densely packed. And this loose connective tissue, you can kind of see you just have to trust me on it. It's a little bit more spider webby-like. It's a little looser than this other one that we looked at. Okay. You don't have to know too many details, but they're nice to know. They're handy bits of information, and you can see which ones you're talking about. Like, particularly with the fish category, you'll want to know the difference between cartilage and bone, because you're going to have 2 groups of fish, a cartilaginous, or a fish mainly of cartilage, and a fish made of bone. So it's helpful to know the difference between those two tissues, so that way you know how to describe them a little bit better. Okay. Muscle tissue is the most abundant tissue in animals. There's 3 types. Skeletal, that's part of voluntary movements. There's cardiac muscle, which is your heart muscle. And then there's smooth muscle, which moves kind of walls of internal organs like the intestines. They're the things that help push, foods and waste through your body. So that way, you don't have to concentrate on that one. It just takes care of it for you. So here's sort of the differences in what they look like. Skeletal muscle is striped. That's what these little stripes are. We say it's striated. Cardiac is also kind of striated. There's little stripes in it. It just happens to be overall a little bit more branchy. That's kind of what that looks like. Smooth muscle is smooth muscle because it's smoother and not as kind of striated as the other ones. It's just nice and smooth. Nervous tissue is our last tissue overall to talk about. It senses stimuli and rapidly transmits information. You've got neurons that carry signals conducting electrical impulses, so it's a little bit of electricity going through your body at any point in time. Other cells in the nervous system insulate the axons, nourish neurons, and regulate fluids. So there are some other functions in there. Okay, that's sort of what a general kind of neuron looks like. So just so you know, that's a neuron. Yay! Yay, neurons. Perfect. So we're right at 10 minutes. This is a great place to take a break, pause the video, Go get a snack or a drink of water or do something else. Come back, maybe look at your notes again real quick, chunk them, write a few questions, maybe part of your summary, and then we'll keep going. This was a big one to your project. So organs and organ systems are what you need to kind of describe in each of your individual animals. Well, not individual animals. Remember, you're talking about the whole group, not just one particular animal. Each tissue performs specific functions. We got that. So the heart is an extensive muscle that generates contraction. Epithelial tissues that line the heart prevent leaks and form a smooth surface for blood flow. I don't know if you can hear the dog in the background. She's moving a bowl around because I think she thinks I didn't feed her enough. That's okay. All right, connective tissues that make up the heart are elastic and strong, and neurons regulate contractions. So you can see that all of these types of tissues, all these things are working together to make a heart work. So lots of tissues go into each organ. Come on, there we go. So the small intestine is also lined with epithelium and involves some connective tissues. There's also blood vessels. We've got smooth muscle in there. And inner surfaces have these kind of finger-like projections that increase the surface area. So again, lots of things going on in one area. And this is just for humans. So we're going to have some different things involved in different animals. All right. Just interesting things as it connects where bioengineering is seeking ways to repair or replace damaged tissue or organs. New tissue and organs are being grown on a scaffold of connective tissue from donated organs. And other researchers are using desktop printers to create layers of different cells and resembling the structures of organs. Believe it or not, I don't think it was a 3D printer, but it was something else. They've made a completely synthetic model of the heart for med students to use. So there is a lot of development in this area when it comes to humans and biology and anatomy and physiology for humans. Like, it's absolutely fascinating. This one's one made from connective tissue, but I promise you there's some fully synthetic ones that beat and do all kinds of other things. It's insane. So a lot of still developments for you guys to get involved with. There's some job security in science. Just, think about it. So each organ system typically consists of many organs that has one or more functions, and they have to work with other organ systems to create a functional organism. So you'll see some overlap between the organ systems of your organism, but you want to stick with kind of basic stuff. So we'll talk circulatory, respiratory, which these I forget always to mention, but you should probably mention how it breathes when you talk about your circulatory system. So you probably do actually want to include respiratory system in your circulatory system talk. And maybe I can update the information online to reflect that soon, but you do want to mention how it gets some sort of breath. Integumentary system is kind of its skin, its outer covering. So what kind of outer coverings does your animal have? Skeletal system would be, does it have an internal or an external skeleton? That's going to go a long way. Muscular system, how does your little guy get around? Okay. Urinary and digestive, I always forget urinary as well, but we want to think about waste elimination. So you might also include something about the urinary system for your animal. So digestive, but also how does it eliminate kind of the waste of nitrogen? Okay. We'll have the endocrine system, so how do they transmit hormones? You can talk about that as far as the reproductive system goes. Oops. Oh no. I'm not too good with the writing today. But the whole point of this, I'm trying to give you the other systems that are kind of involved in hand. So if you're really not sure about your 8 to 10 minutes, you have lots to go from here. Lymphatic and immune, we don't really talk about as much, but we can come back to those at a certain point. Nervous system is really, really important because you want to talk about how it responds to its environment, and then also the reproductive system. So how does it make more of itself? That's always an important thing with a species, is they've got to be able to make more organisms. All right, so circulatory and respiratory systems. So we're looking at delivering oxygen and nutrients from the body, and then carbon dioxide removal. So moving those things back and forth. We can also, this is circulatory system, and also involves removing kind of metabolic waste. The kidneys are part of the urinary system. but they are kind of a filtration of blood. The kidneys will filter blood in order to produce urine. Okay. Respiratory system is exchange of gases with the environment, so supplying the blood with oxygen and getting rid of the carbon dioxide. So you'll want to look at those two systems, circulatory and respiratory. Okay, you can just find some pictures like that to give you an idea. Integumentary system, you can also talk about in some way. These kind of get intertwined when you talk about certain animals with exoskeletons, but you might want to talk about what its skin is like. Add that structurally in there somewhere. So physical injury, infection, excess heat or cold, drying out, that's the whole thing that the integumentary system protects against. So look at your animal. How does it prevent infection? How does it avoid injury? How does it kind of avoid getting too hot or too cold and drying out? So look at those. For you guys, that's hair, skin, and nails. Those are all integumentary. Skeletal system, it's going to support the body, protect the organs like the brain and the lungs, and provide a framework for muscle movement. So how does your particular animal get around? Okay, well, how does it support? What's supporting the body and protecting the organs? How's that working? Okay, for us, it's an internal one. So for mammals, you'll have something sort of like that. Muscular system, that's going to move the body. So how do your little animals get around? Do they get around? Okay. How does it maintain a posture? Does it have kind of a posture? I don't know. Something to look into. And then how does it kind of get some heat production? So that's also a part of regulating heat and cold. Okay. So look at the muscular system of your animal. Is it something similar to this, or is it completely different? Take a look at it. Urinary system, that can also be involved with the digestive, but how do we remove waste from the blood? Excrete urine. Is it urine? Some animals don't use urine. Some of them just straight up excrete ammonia. That's impressive, because ammonia is like nothing to mess with. So, but urine is a little less intense on a body. But what does it remove? Okay, how does it regulate chemical makeup, pH, water balance of the blood? These are all functions of the urinary system. Digestion is, so how do we get food in? What methods get food in? What kind of absorbs nutrients and eliminates undigested materials? So even in this, we do talk about feeding. So what does it tend to feed upon? Okay, so what kind of other things would you want to think about there? Okay, so there's the organs involved in the digestive and the urinary system. Does yours include those or not? Actually, when I go back to it, there's some really cool ones in other animals that aren't found in us because we're constant eaters. So we don't have the crop or the gizzard, which you will find in certain animals. And the crop and the gizzard have more to do with food storage, like storing that so we can regulate nutrients as they go along. So does yours include that? Take a look at it. Endocrine system might work with your reproductive system, but it's a little bit more complicated than that because the endocrine system really secretes hormones that regulate body activities. So everything that you do, so you have, let's see, and you respond quickly to your environment with your nervous system, but long-term, long-sustained body responses come from the endocrine system. Okay, even like eliminating sugars, so that whole diabetes and insulin thing, that's part of the endocrine system. So some things to think about there, and you can see where those things go in best, but here are all the organs involved with those. Okay. The lymphatic and the immune system, again, I don't have those talked kind of wrapped in there as much, but those are part of other things that you can talk about. Is do they have any cool kind of uh, lymphatic or immune systems that, help protect their body from infection and cancer? The lymphatic system also returns excess body fluid to the circulatory system, so that way we can get water back to the body. Okay. So this includes like lymph nodes and spleen and all that kind of stuff. Even your appendix was part of it. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, the nervous system that coordinates body activities, detecting stimuli, integrating information, directing responses. What does that nervous system look like in your animal? Some animals have brains, some don't. But what is their kind of nervous system network look like to be able to respond to their environment? Because that's what that's all about, is responding to the environment. Okay, it's the nervous system in us, and those are the potential organs you could have involved. Reproductive system produces gametes and sex hormones. So those are things, at least gametes we've talked about before. So how does your particular animal produce those gametes? How does that happen? Is there internal or external fertilization? Those things can be different depending on the organism. The female reproductive system is supporting a developing embryo and produces milk. Okay, how does a developing baby get nutrients? Those are other things that you could talk about with the reproductive system. Is some things just, we'll talk about those, but there's a couple of things that I call it the lay and pray method, where some animals will just have like 1,000 babies and go like, well, fingers crossed they make it. And then some of them are use parental care. Like they'll only have 1 or 2 babies, but they will put all their energy into keeping those 1 or 2 babies alive. So look at your particular organism and see where it fits in those kind of reproductive strategies. But here are all the organs involved with the reproductive system. Right? Not necessary to list, but at least to have those. So we're at a good stopping point again. Hopefully that gives you an idea of what kind of things you can cover with your animals and their kind of systems. So take a look at those. All right. Internal and external regulation, we'll keep it short, but homeostasis is really what everybody's trying to do, and that's an active maintenance of a steady state within the body. So that's just kind of maintaining a good level. Like homeostasis for us is we want to have 98.5 degrees Fahrenheit as far as our body temperature is concerned. And so whenever our temperature changes, our body's going to do something different to correct that. So environmental conditions fluctuate, the outside temperature changes, whatever, but our homeostatic mechanisms regulate those internal conditions so like we can keep our 98.5 degree temperature. Okay, so here's an example with this particular bird, this owl, is that its internal temperature is maybe between 38 and 40 degrees Celsius, although there's huge fluctuations in the external environment. There's small fluctuations within its body, so that's homeostasis. Okay, the control systems are negative feedback. Okay, well, control systems direct change and direct responses, but these are usually what we call negative feedback. So they keep internal variables steady and permit only small fluctuations around set points. This actually is a lot like a thermostat. So you can always ask your folks, but it's like in air conditioning. It works just like the air conditioner. Okay, so there you go. So, 98.5 degrees Fahrenheit converts to about 37 degrees Celsius. So if, let's see, if your temperature rises, it will tell the brain. The brain will do a few things which will cause the skin to dilate and you'll get heat loss. Well, usually through sweating or whatever else, your temperature decreases and then that will shut those things off so you'll stop sweating so much. If your body temperature falls below, the brain will send a different signal. It will contract or constrict the blood vessels. It will stimulate muscle contractions and shivering, the shiver shakes, but that'll actually increase your temperature. And so when your temperature gets to a certain point, it will tell the brain to shut it off. So when you reach the part that you want, it will actually turn that off. That's negative feedback. Okay. And there you go. There's a quick and rough kind of version of how we do the body systems, but I feel confident that you guys will learn a lot more and be able to get it yourselves. You'll have it. Okay, so, but if you have any questions on those or the body systems as you go through them, just shoot me an email. We'll figure it out.